fire giant walled me so much. My first time fighting him. I got in, he slapped me with his dinner plate, and I died in one hit.
Hunter, you don't understand. He does have a dinner plate.
Yeah.
Not even clickbait. Not clickbait. Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the HGO podcast. I'm one of hosts today, Ethan, and joining me, as always, are my good friends, Kyle.
Hello.
And Hunter. How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing just swell.
You know, it's been a quiet week for video games.
It's been a very somber week.
It's been quiet for us. Everyone's been like, oh, you know, there's been all this massive news. There was the Zelda news. Haven't watched it. E3's dead. Saw that coming. It's been a very weird week for video game news. But no, you guys doing all right? How are you holding up?
Oh, despite Mother Nature's best efforts yet again, I am still.
That's
here to
twice.
record
That is
the
2 weeks in a
podcast.
row that your power has died.
2 weeks in a row.
On recording day, which is not good.
All inside of the 2 o'clock hour. Like last week, it was like 2:40 something. This week it was 2:30. Took longer to come back this time too. We are. It's not looking good for next week.
Ethan and I had to play Crash 2 to entertain ourselves.
We did, and that
until
was
he was there.
That was definitely an experience that I will
It
definitely not
was
forget.
a choice.
But now this week, it's a bit of a lighter week again. We are going to talk about Tchia. Hunter's been playing some of that, so he's going to play. He's going to talk about him playing it. He's not going to play it for us. He's going to talk about himself playing it. He's played at least half of it, so we'll see how he's feeling. About halfway through. Kyle, as a punishment from last week's last week, I'm just not in it today. Last year's fantasy critic, Hunter has been. Kyle has been playing Elden Ring. I'm just not in it. Take 2. Kyle has played Elden Ring. So we're gonna ask the big question.
Crash 2 really broke him.
It did. It utterly smashed me. You know, 1 year later, without all of the hype, all of that has dissipated into the atmosphere. What is Elden Ring like? Kyle's going to be telling us all about that in a little bit. And hey, Hunter's also played Have a Nice Death, and E3 is dead. We'll talk about all of that. We've got
Very
a lot of show to
of each other there.
Yeah, have a nice death, E3. Geoff Keighley says as he jumps on the grave and brings another Summer Game Fest to us, as is tradition at this point. But yeah, we've got lots to talk about. I said it earlier, but we'll get it out of the way. We're not talking about Zelda. We're not like taking a stand. We're not like anything like that. It's just me and Hunter haven't seen it because we don't really want to watch it. We feel like we've seen enough of the game at this point, so we haven't seen it. And
yeah, I'm gonna get it anyway, so I don't really need to look at it. I've seen
So
a couple
we just
memes
thought,
that are funny,
yeah.
but you know.
we're a bit late. You know,
I think it's funny that you say that you've seen enough of the game when like nothing has been shown.
But here's the thing.
I don't-
Up to this point.
It's the sequel of the best game I've played since I've played it. I don't need to see anything.
It just the phrasing amused me is all.
It's just, well, here's the thing, right, is we've seen nothing. 10 minutes of Aonuma running around the world showing us nothing again is not going to do anything for me, so I don't need to see it. I also saw the special edition Switch, I saw the Pro Controller, I saw the carry case, I saw all of that stuff. If you want my
My
impressions
carry
on that,
case is busted, so I might actually get that carrying case.
the carry case looks nice. The Pro Controller looks really good. I like that a lot. It sold out instantly, so that's good for my wallet, I guess. And the Nintendo Switch, I like. It's all right. It's good, but it's also a Nintendo Switch in the year before the Switch 2 probably comes out. So, you know, it's a bit of a stupid purchase. Get us to 200 subscribers by the end of the week and I'll buy it. That's a joke. Don't do that.
Get us to 200 subscribers anyway, though.
Yeah, please
I
do.
was gonna say, get us to 1,000 and he'll do it.
Pardon? Not in a week. I would do it if we get to 200.
No. Get us to 1,000 by the end of this week.
If we get to 200 by the end of the week, I'll do it, but it's not going to happen. So, you know, I'll just throw that one into the atmosphere. It's not going to happen. Please don't make it happen.
Please make it happen. It would be so funny.
Please don't. That should have waited.
Do.
But yeah, so that's Zelda talk. We're not watching it, but we will be covering Zelda, obviously. If we hit 200 subscribers, Cal said he'll even try it. So, you know, was it 200? That was it, right? Throw it into
Yeah, that
the-
was
200.
Okay.
Because
So,
that was
do it
tacked
in a
onto
week,
your
I'll buy it
reviewing
unnecessarily,
Breath of the
yeah.
Wild.
Yeah. Cool. So I'll review Breath of the Wild. Kyle will play Tears of the Kingdom. It'll be a load of fun. Do it. We dare you. Not by the end of this week,
And
though.
Hunter won't do anything.
Hunter won't do anything.
I
except
already do
probably-
everything, so you
Yeah,
can't
what?
really
True,
attach this
but
to.
you didn't do your review this week.
Yeah,
Hunter.
but you
My
didn't finish the
review
review in
is
time.
working.
You
I'm working
failed.
on it.
You just can't get the staff these days. Yeah, the Resident Evil review will be out this week at some point, so make sure you subscribe to youtube.com/hotgamersonly or go to hotgamersonly.com.
Listen, not everyone can take
for
the
that.
week that a game is coming out off of work to dedicate their time
Look,
to playing
I
and
had
reviewing
that.
it.
My work gave me that week off, Hunter.
Oh, well, good for you.
Right, okay, kids, calm
Must
down.
be
calm down.
nice.
It's getting a bit heated here, and usually it's me
It
that's
was
one of the
pretty
heated
nice.
ones. I don't like it. Let's calm down. Let's calm down.
No.
Uh,
I just got off playing Crash 2. I'm in a fighting mood right now.
Well, too bad. You should have. If you were in such a fighting mood, you should have won. Anyway, moving on. It is time for Tchia. Hunter, you've played Tchia. What is Tchia again? It's that indie game that was PlayStation was showing.
Yeah,
a lot
it's
of
been
last
at
year.
it's been at several of the PlayStation Directs. I don't care what they're called actually anymore.
State
But
of Plays.
there you are. Yeah, and the whole time I saw those trailers, I was like, it looks kind of cool, but also not really sure what you're going to be doing in this game a whole lot, because it's like, oh, pretty open, pretty sandbox thing to explore, and you can also jump into things like Mario Odyssey. And
Yes.
I guess the best way to describe it is it is one of those games that does like a lot of stuff and very serviceably, but it hasn't really went anywhere with any of those mechanics to an exceptional level, I would say.
I mean, that's
Like-
what I was when I've seen gameplay of it and I've been looking at reviews and stuff like that. It did very much look like it was like, look, it's got like these exploration systems that are very similar to say the word Breath of the Wild. I hate when everyone compares everything to Breath of the Wild, but it very much does. It has like a map where you have to actually explore the map and know where you are in the map instead of it just having like little everything everywhere telling you you're exactly here and here's everything that's
Well,
around
it'll
you.
tell you where everything else is. It just doesn't tell you where
Yeah.
you are, except for the general
Yeah.
area.
It's got a load of
That sounds like a useless map.
it does, right? It does. Hang on.
I mean,
let's-
that's kind of how maps actually work, though.
What?
Look.
You don't have a little marker on a physical map telling you where you are.
You
You just
don't?
kind of have to know.
Damn, bro, that's crazy.
What you do on your phone map.
You
Yeah, I guess that's true.
can.
But
Physical
it-
maps, Hunter. You goof.
you're a goof. Anyway, Tchia. So it was a nice little. This game is atmospherically a nice little change of pace from finishing Resident Evil and going into this. It's a very relaxing kind of game as far as that's concerned. But like I said, it takes all these mechanics and throws a bunch of them at you in like the first 30 minutes. Like it gives you a slingshot to go shoot down some coconuts to grab for some stuff for this opening segment here, and then I haven't used the slingshot again for like the next, I don't know, 4 hours I was playing it.
Mm.
So, and there's a lot of things like that as far as I'm sure if I went and did more of the optional stuff like right when I was allowed to, I probably would be doing more of these things, but I haven't really felt super compelled to do that yet. It does a good job at trying to structure the goals around making you do some of that stuff, like after you leave the initial island, one of the first things you get is a task where it's like, oh, to see this guy that you're trying to talk to, you have to get these things as a gift for him, and all that. And essentially, this game devolves into becoming Fetch Quests, the video game, in a lot of ways, where you'll get that little list of things you need to get, and while you're going to the places you need to get these things, the people at the places with the stuff also want you to get something else. Like you needed a chicken or a dead chicken for one of those little items on his to-do list there, and the person who had the chicken in the town was like, I want to eat a crab for dinner today, so go get me a crab. And I'm like, okay, well, and I think that in a lot of other games that would have been annoying to the point of, well, I don't want to play this anymore. But as far as, and maybe I'll hit that stage with this game, in the back half. But so far, I think despite not really doing anything super crazy with the mechanics, the world is enjoyable enough to just exist in. As far as like, it's a very cool little sandbox to play around in. It's very pretty as far as that's concerned. The environments kind of remind me of something similar to like, I don't know, Wind Waker, and the people, they're not going for this super hyper real kind of thing. They kind of all look kind of like little dolls in a way, little mannequins.
Yeah.
As far as that goes, I think it works for them in that regard, and all of the actual like cutscene interactions tend to be pretty amusing as far as that's concerned with the writing in the game. Like when you're going to the office of the dude that you're trying to talk to, one of the cutscenes is like the secretary gives Tchia like a stack of papers that she has to fill out too, and the way they cut it and the music cues they go with it, they make it seem like some kind of really dramatic duel is happening. And I'm like, oh, I wasn't expecting that. That's really funny. Or when you're getting the dead chicken, after you fulfill that little errand, it's like, oh, it needs to be dead, so they just grab the chicken and slice off its head with a little cutaway. I'm like, I wasn't expecting that. And then the chicken's just hopping around without its head, like all Among Us style, with like the Among Us style cartoony gore. And I'm like, oh, that's funny. Like chicken with its head cut off, it just refuses to stop moving. So it's, as far as the writing in this game goes, it's pretty humorous that way, and it's got other nice little moments as far as I'm like, oh yeah, it's nice that she's making friends while she's doing all this stuff. I'm interested enough in the story as far as that's concerned. They really like these weird rhythm game sections, and it is definitely a choice to make you play a rhythm section while also, unless you're a French speaker, need to read the subtitles to understand the lyrics of what they're saying to you. The option to turn you can just auto play it essentially, which I end up doing for especially the guitar sections where I'm like, oh, I'm not good at this. It's got like the radio, it's got like the little wheel where you gotta hit the notes.
Oh, the Last of Us thing.
Yeah, that. And I'm like, I don't feel like I can't do this and also look at the words at the same time. Mm-hmm. There are other variants of like rhythm games where it's like, oh, hit the little clapping and then stomps on the other end there, but yeah. But yeah. So it just doing a lot of stuff. I was expecting them to go a little further with the soul jumping mechanic, which is what they're calling the Mario Odyssey thing. Because like, there are a lot of objects that you can pick up and interact with in this game, so you'd think that like, oh, when you jump into these objects, a lot of them would behave differently when you are them, right? But most of them, with the exception of when you're like, possessing an animal or something, just kind of act the same, where it's like, oh, it just rolls or whatever. Where, possess a chair and it will just kind of tumble, and if you possess a rock, it will tumble, but a little more smoothly because it's round, like, at least the variation is there when you're like jumping into animals and stuff. Like deer can run quicker and you can fly if you find a bird.
Yeah. Crabs
can pinch things, although I haven't found an actual utility for that. It's just really funny. And so on. Like, I think if they would have done a little less if they would have pared down the objects that you can just interact with for no reason, and maybe came up with a few different ones that to do different things with, it would have worked better. Because like, there have been certain moments while I'm running around the world where it's like, oh, I'm on top of a hill, it's too far of a jump, I won't have enough stamina to sail all the way down before plummeting to my doom, so I possessed a rock and tumbled down that way rather than running down the mountain. And that was cool. So I feel like if they had thought about that, took that a little further, where it's like, oh, have a tumble down the hill with the rock and then have something to where you can zoom across the woods with something quicker.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would have been neat, and I think that's probably the crux of my feelings on this game, is if they would have tried to do a little less of everything and done a couple of things really well, I'd be more interested in going back like sooner, you know?
Yeah, it seems like that's kind of what my gauge has been. It's why I have it installed on my PS5. I just haven't played it, and I just feel like every time I look at it, it's like it's got all these little quirks, right? Where it's like it is very much like, hey, look, we've got like these exploration mechanics, we've got these physics-based kind of mechanics that are similar to Breath of the Wild. We've got this, kind of cappy mechanic of being able to cap, like, basically take over whether it's inanimate objects or living beings. You've got that kind of mechanic going on. You've got these rhythm game elements. You've got a lot of stuff where it's like, yeah, you've got a load of stuff and you've done it in a way where it seems to be at least acceptable. It's working, it's all right.
Yeah,
but it's not
it
really a
works,
master
it's
of
just
any
not.
of these things where nothing really feels
Yeah.
like it
Like at a
there's
gameplay
reason
level, there's
for it.
nothing stand out. It's more of the world is cool, which, to be fair, I think that was seemingly a lot of their intention, as far as this team is from like New Caledonia, which is an archipelago near Australia, and they seem to really like where they live. And to be fair, it looks like a nice place.
Yeah.
So I really like when developers take inspiration from their own little pockets of the world for their game worlds. Like Chris Hales had a lot of architecture that was based around Colombia and stuff, and I'm like, oh, no wonder this looks so unique compared to a lot of other stuff I'm looking at in games like this. So I think that's really cool. But and this game is also like determined to be accessible to the point of almost being zero conflict. Like you could skip gameplay whenever you want if you so desired. For the sake of science, and also because the way they structured one of the little fetch quests, I hit the button to like it because it's like pause it. You can like skip gameplay section, and we'll just skip you to like the next cutscene. One of the things that eventually, when they asked me to do one of the things, it was like, oh, go talk to this person on the other end of the island. And then it was like, oh, you talk to them, they give you a thing, and then you have to go all the way back to the town where you originally. I'm like, okay, well, I don't feel like running back there. I'm going to see what this skip gameplay section button is like. And it just teleported me to where. It doesn't seem to skip over things from what I can tell, although I haven't really spammed it to find out.
Fair enough.
But the one instance I used it did take me where I thought I would be. So if there's just something you don't feel like doing, you can apparently just skip it.
Nice.
Fair enough. It's an interesting one, right? And it's like, I don't know, like I say, it's like nothing, it looks fine, and it looks like it has great, and it's got some really interesting stuff. Like, I love the art style's really cool. It's like, it's got all these kind of, I don't know what's the kind of, it's got like all these inspirations to like actual like cultures and all this kind of stuff where I'm like, this is all cool. I'm like, I really like all the stuff you've got going on here. But also, there's nothing about the gameplay that's making me go, I want to play that. And it's just I feel like
It's funny because in a way, if they just kind of gave me a story game with all of these culture stuff too, I probably would be more like, oh yeah, like a Life is Strange kind of thing, I guess. Where the existing in the world is mostly the point there. With the story, I would have probably been like, okay, cool. But when you have the cool world and then ask me to do a bunch of things that are in a manner that are acceptable but maybe not super interesting, that's where I'm starting to lose the juice on wanting to play it as much. I probably still will finish it because I've been liking it, fine. It's just I'm not coming home with the very strong desire to turn it on right away.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. It's fair enough. So yeah, and remember, if you do want to check it out, it is only available on PlayStation at the moment, and if you are a subscriber of PlayStation Plus on the middle extra tier, that's what it's called. They really just need to change the names of the PlayStation tiers because they're garbage. But if
Tier
you're on extra,
1, 2, and 3.
yeah, if you're on extra, you can play it at no extra cost, or premium if you are unfortunately conned into that subscription like I have been for the past year. Enjoy. You can play it alongside your Siphon Filter games and your Ape Escapes. Congratulations. You've been played. But no, it's out there. It's interesting, right? Because Sony doesn't really do these day one releases. that often. So it's interesting. You get it. There's another one. There's one for Essential next month. Well, this month, I guess.
Meteor Maker.
Meteor Maker from the Dead by Daylight team, which very much, to me, I'm like, that's interesting, but also I can see why this is going on PlayStation Plus because I feel like it'll need a boost if it is good. I feel like that'll need a player base boost. So, fair enough.
Yeah.
And more importantly, Sackboy is coming to Plus, which is I have that game. I've been waiting to play it, but it has a couple of multiplayer trophies. So now that it's going on Plus and everyone has it, I'm like, oh, hell yeah. Let's go. We should do a co-op. It's got online multiplayer. It's basically 3D World, and it's got online multiplayer. And the online multiplayer, get this, you ready for this? Brace yourself, Nintendo fans. It's actually good and working. What a shocker.
Man.
Oh my god. It's almost like online can be functional if it's not Nintendo. That's crazy. But no, a load of good stuff on Plus, so you can go and check that stuff out. Why not? It's all good. Right. Anyway, enough about that. It's time to talk about a game that's way more important. Elden Ring, am I right, gamers? Hey.
Is it my turn?
Yes, congratulations, Kyle. So last year you came last in the fantasy draft.
Correct.
And as punishment, we made you play critically acclaimed Darling, Game of the Year 2022, Elden Ring, which was a game that you had no
Indeed.
interest in whatsoever.
Absolutely.
But we were like, unfortunately for you, you must play the greatest game ever made according to people on the internet, apparently. So off you trot. So
Yeah. So a bit of background. I had up to that point only played one Souls game, and that was Bloodborne. And also, I don't like open world games, so that's kind of why I just felt like the game wouldn't click with me.
Mhm.
That's why that game was never on my radar. That's why I never had any plans to play it.
which is fair enough, to be honest, because
Yeah.
it's like, I don't know, I'm also sick of open world games. I have got to that point where I genuinely, like with Tchia, as soon as they say it's an open world, I genuinely do like the eye roll and the groan and go, I don't want to do this, right? It's like,
Yeah.
my open worlds right now are like, I can deal with like Kamurocho in Yakuza, which is literally just a couple of street blocks. I can deal with that as long like it's just like if it's small enough, I'm fine. But as soon as it does it's a big world, it's twice the size of Skyrim or whatever, I'm like, get the fuck out of here. I'm done. Get out that door.
The detail.
16 times the detail. I don't care, Todd Howard. Get me out. I'm really looking forward to Starfield, by the way. I can't wait. But it's just there's something about open world games that they were so. If they weren't overdone in the PS3 generation,
so
they definitely were in the
oversaturated.
PS4 and Xbox One generation, where everything was an open world, and it's kind of like,
Especially when things like Breath of the Wild and Horizon did so well back in 2017. Like, it just felt like after that, open world was just the default to go to.
and I mean, we do always clown on Sony for making the same third-person over-the-shoulder action games, but I feel like that's why Sony was such a breath of fresh air in that era. Was other than Days Gone, which 20 people who are really passionate about Days Gone played. Spider-Man and Horizon, like everything else, like God of War, Last of Us, was like a little bit more structured. It was a little bit more solo, and you're like, oh yeah, Uncharted, I can play through this. It's a fucking straight line. Hell yeah, no open world, or at least it's a small open world, like Infamous Second Son, where it's like you can deal with something like that. It's not a huge, momentous kind of accomplishment to go over it. So when I got into Elden Ring, and we talked about it last year on the podcast, I was like, I wasn't jiving with it. I was like, fucking hell, dude. Like, I don't like the world. I don't know like how it doesn't give me any information. I just want to know where the big things are that I can stab. Because a lot of the hyperbole from Elden Ring back last year was, there's something around every corner. Jason Schreier, I'm going to hold you to that one for the next 10 years minimum. There's something around every corner. No matter where you go, there's something to do. Yeah, if you're talking about a tree or going in the same crypt for the 60th time, there is something around every corner. It's just, I feel like people got too like, don't get me wrong, I really liked Elden Ring when I got to the end of it, but I feel like people got too engrossed in their kind of hype that I'm like, people kind of bigged it up as something more than it actually was. So you had a year, Cal. Elden Ring is still hype as fuck. I'd like to say the hype has calmed down. It hasn't if you still search for Elden Ring. But
it hasn't. When I started playing this game, DLC got announced for it.
that was just bad timing,
That was just bad timing.
But
Yeah,
you've
so
had a year. So a year later? You've played it. What are your opinions on Elden Ring?
So I started playing Elden Ring after a week after I finished Octopath 2. That was like near the start of March, and
Yeah.
it was basically just to tide me over until Resident Evil 4, until Resi 4 remake came out.
Which is a game that you played and beat in 2 days, and now you're like, oh,
what do now?
what do now?
But I'm like, look, I'm either gonna finish Elden Ring or get real close to finishing it by the time Resi 4 remake comes out. And fortunately, I finished it, so I didn't have to go back and remember how to play the video game after Resi 4.
You did get
all
close
2
to
days
quitting,
it would have
though.
taken you to forget.
You did
Yeah.
you did also get really close to quitting on Big Slug. And to be fair, Big Slug can suck it. It's an awful final boss.
It is a miserable final boss. We'll get to that, but I think I'm trying to remember like the order of events on how I did things. It started with me figuring out what I wanted to do for my general character build, because the thing with Elden Ring is that you're going to have to do a lot of homework to understand anything, to have any sort of clue what you're doing in this game.
Yeah.
Because the game ain't going to tell you shit.
And I feel
when you
like it's
start
for
the game
better
up-
or I feel it's for better or
just gonna say-
worse. Because it's like in something like Bloodborne or something like Dark Souls, where it's a little bit more constrained, where it's like, yes, there's kind of the game doesn't tell you what to do, but Bloodborne, for the most part, is a very linear experience. There are a couple of areas that you might interchange in where you go, but it's like
you might be able to trip over what to do even if you don't necessarily know.
Yeah, Bloodborne is very pick up and play.
And
even if you just like stick with the base weapons.
Whereas Elden Ring is just there's fucking everything's everywhere, and there's something to it where for a first time player it's something interesting where it's like you don't know where all this stuff is, and there's a load of crypts and there's a load of dungeons and you get to do all this stuff. It's kind of interesting, but when it's the same shit over and over again, that's when it started when it's like it's the same boss at the end of the dungeon. I'm like, okay, we're doing this again. I understand that you can't make 150 unique bosses. I get that. I respect
it's
that.
Like it
this
sounds
game was
like if they had
ages.
taken the Chalice dungeons in Bloodborne.
Oh, they're 100% Chalice dungeons.
And just spread it out across the world instead.
There were some people, Hunter, that genuinely were of the belief that they used the same stuff that they did with Chalice dungeons, and then they basically and I wouldn't be surprised if they did, where they did like a baseline, make 100 of these dungeons, and then they went in with an actual team and they brushed them up and made them actually better. I wouldn't be surprised if they did that.
See, that's funny to me because the only reason I even did the Chalice dungeons is because my friend told me about the cool boss that was at the end of them.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong, there's some really cool bosses. But the thing I'm getting to is, if you're someone like me and your goal is, I want to hit the big things and I want to have fun doing the actual bosses, it just adds a load of padding where it's like, oh yeah, if you want this item, then you are either going to have to do every single dungeon and hope one day you find it, or you're going to have to go to Google, and then Google will tell you, you want this thing? Well, it's in this dungeon that's right over here, dum-dum. I'm like, okay, that's great. But that also kind of takes the magic out of it. But if you're not jiving with the magic initially, it kind of makes this thing where it's like, well, this is just homework for me to go and hit the big boy in the first place.
But I mean, it's also a kind of case where like Dark Souls was made in the internet age. It's the kind of thing like I don't want to say the devs expected you to look things up back then, but for this game, I'm sure they certainly did.
I don't think it's necessarily
you're not figuring shit out.
I don't think it's necessarily look things up, but I think it's definitely there to spark discussion.
I just don't think they care if you find it or not.
I think it's to spark discussion in the same way that you get your friends to help you. It's like hey, I was playing Elden Ring the other day, and I went to this area in Leonia of the Lakes or whatever it was called, and I was like, and I found this thing in this cave, and it was really sick. And then someone was like, "Oh, cool, tell me where that is." And it's like, "Oh, I'll join your lobby and I'll show you where it is." Cool stuff like that. That's what I think they're
Yeah.
expecting people to do, is share the information, which is great. I also feel though it's really funny when the Dark Souls community gets very angry when people are like, "Oh, I looked this up or I did this." I'm like, play the game how you want to play it, people. Like, I'm sure
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
is how they expect people to play it, is by sharing information. Some people just don't have friends that are all into Elden Ring, so they have to use Google as their friend who tells them where the cool stuff is. Just chill.
Yeah.
It's all good. It's all fun.
And that's about how my playthrough went. It was ride my horse to an area, find thing on the internet, and we go from there. Find solution to getting through dungeon, and I don't know. The build I ended up going with, so I shuffled between 3 builds throughout my playthrough. Started off with um an intelligence build with carry and spell blades, because spell blades are my soul weapon, and I think that they're super fucking cool. And
Oh,
more
are those the
media needs
summon
to use
swords?
those. Yeah, it's those, and then like just magic swords that you don't necessarily need a weapon to use. You kind of just like conjure them, and that's your weapon.
Oh,
It's
Dragon
a cool
Age had one of
concept, and
those. Yeah.
it's cool. And I wish that a lot of that other games would start to use those more, because the only other time I've really seen spell swords is in like Final Fantasy V.
Mm.
But so I started with that, and then I at some point I think it was at the fight with Renala. Is that the name? The magic lady
Yeah, yeah.
that's like a two-phase boss,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and she's like goes into her bubble.
And they're both silly. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So I got to that point, and then my spell blades weren't doing any damage to her, and I'm like, okay,
Oh, you were struggling with that
why?
one?
Dude, legit, my spell blades weren't doing any damage.
Well,
But the
dude, if you went
second
like
I
me, I was
switched, no,
Samurai
no,
Sam,
shut
bro.
up, shut up.
Samurai Sam.
If the second I switched to a physical based weapon, her health bar just got deleted, and
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, cool video game.
That's like
It
the
literally just told me, no, your build isn't allowed to progress past this point.
it's like how in Final Fantasy, you got enemies that, in like Final Fantasy X, you need to use Lulu to kill the elemental things. It's like the reverse of that, where
Yeah.
you can only smack things
Well, I
with
mean, that one, at
Orin
least
or
in
something.
my head, that one in my head at least makes sense. Like that from magic. You use magic against a magic user, so yeah, to me it makes sense that if they're gonna do shit like this, like Pokemon fucking effectiveness mechanics, at least using magic against the magic person makes sense for her to have resistance to magic. That makes sense. There are points in this game
Yeah,
where it
that's
goes
fine.
later where it's like, oh, you stupid thing. Obviously, Dark Beast, whatever he hates, doesn't like fucking katanas, so get something else. And you're like, what the like, why? So it's
Yeah, that's
like,
fine, but it's just like it was annoying for me as a first-time player who didn't know that and was focusing my build on the Spellblade set that the game presented as an option, and then it's just like, well, no, this option sucks now. You respec, dumbass.
yeah, well, that's just your fucking, it's like you pick Charmander and you gotta go face Brock. You know what I'm saying? It's like you've made your choice. You gotta either, go
I mean,
capture another Pokemon out in the wild or respec. I don't think it's necessarily the game's fault, because I feel like if you have everything be great against everything, then I'm like, I can see why
in
it's
Kyle's
disappointing to be
defense, the only
It's
other
just annoying,
FromSoft game he played before that was Bloodborne, where you could literally choose anything and keep
Yeah,
it the
but
whole game.
but the difference
win.
there is Bloodborne was a game that had 9 weapons. Like, it was like
Yeah.
the idea, that's the kind of idea of Bloodborne was, all of those kind of more Dark Soulsy kind of builds and stuff like that. It was very much streamlined. I think the only more streamlined Souls game is Sekiro, because you just have the katana.
Yeah.
So it's like, I understand that, and understand that being like
As
your
God
first,
intended.
yeah, being your first Souls game.
We'll get to that.
Yeah, as being your first Souls game, yeah, it can be like, if you've only played Bloodborne, it can kind of being like, okay, why does my fucking weapon now do dicks towards this? But then I also think that I'm like, you can hate it and it's annoying, but also I can also understand from a gameplay perspective how they're like, okay, we can't have like 60 weapons in this game and then just be like, oh yeah, they're all fine, because then there's no reason to not swap and experiment. If everything works perfectly against everything, then they might as well have made one weapon for the entire game. I think that's what they were
Well,
going with
yeah.
from Sekiro. But then
No, and I
also
get what you're saying.
they made fucking Melania and said gave fucking
I,
middle
I
finger
get what
anyway.
you're saying, and like you can definitely say skill issue on my part,
Not
but
skill
also
issue, just necessarily
Preparation issue.
no, just
but also it's the fact that I was genuinely doing 0 damage, which kind of miffed me. If it was just like reduced from like a little bit from what I was doing before to the last boss, I'd be fine. I'd have no issue. But like I was doing genuinely no damage.
dude,
And I don't know.
people
It just
literally use their pinky finger and kill them, dude. They'll chip damage forever, dude. I feel like you just like
it just rubbed me the wrong way, you know?
it's a Souls thing, dude. It's a Souls thing in general.
The notion of you just smacking the boss with the summoned swords for half an hour and then getting tired of it and punching her once is a very amusing thought for me.
Well, no, the only reason I tried to, so at that point I had tried another weapon, which was like this +8 weapon that the game had given me from one of the generic helper NPCs that lives in the round table.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
I don't remember what his name is. Roderick?
Don't
Harry.
look at me. I don't
No,
remember.
no, it started with an R. I don't remember what his name is. It'll come to me in the middle of the night tonight.
Of course it will.
But so I used his weapon and then shredded her health bar, and I'm like, okay, very cool. So it's at that point I decided to just move away from the Spellblade build and start building towards a dual katana build, as God intended, because
Oh,
those are
you
my other
love the
soul
double.
weapons.
I do love dual wielding swords. That was.
And
that was
anyways, and then that build carried me to the end of the game until I got to the final boss. My katana stopped doing damage, and I had to find another build and rebuild my character again.
See, that happened with me. I was katana. Because I picked the samurai as my starting class, so it's like I had the katana from the get go, and then I kept swapping around with different katanas, just messing about like the blood one or whatever. And I had a perfect time through most of the game. The only ones that I kind of struggled with was Fire Giant, but Fire Giant's just a bastard in general.
Yeah, Fire Giant fucking sucks.
And then it's
Oh,
like
yeah.
Melania
You were
is,
complaining
but
about
Melania
him.
fucking sucked. You didn't do Melania because you're smart, but
No,
Melania just
that wasn't
fucking
part of the bet.
sucks in general. Just not a fun fight, and it's just like, yeah, it's fun if you know. To be honest, Kyle, I feel like in a sick and twisted way you hate it, but also it's got that kind of, I like to call it bullshit design, but it has that Kingdom Hearts design where it wants you to meticulously like look at the frames and be like, ah, she has moved her right hand up. It is time for her to do the spinny 360 no scope off the top of Rust move. And it's like, you know, it's very much one of those kind of like she to me she's like a Kingdom Hearts fucking super boss of the Elden Ring universe is basically what she is. But also you've got fat
So
rolling
rough.
because it's because it's Elden Ring.
So there was one comment I came across in my studies on this game that really stuck with
In my
me.
studies.
Yes.
I think this was on the final boss build video that I found. It wasn't a cheese video, it was just have a reasonable time fighting the final boss with this build kind of thing, you know?
Mhm.
And there was one comment that was like, they put Devil May Cry level bosses into a video game with Grand Theft Auto movement. And
Yeah.
and I think that comment really just hit the nail on the head for me.
Yeah,
Like,
that people like, I don't know as far as, most of Elden Ring goes, but I enjoyed Bloodborne and all that, but that's why I don't bother with harder difficulties in a lot of games, is that
yeah.
there's nothing there would be nothing gratifying to me about playing Uncharted on something harder. There's nothing gratifying to me about playing Uncharted on normal even. So playing something like that on a harder difficulty when it's just walking through molasses and pointing at stuff.
Yeah.
That's how it's interesting, right? Because it's like with Elden Ring, I 100% see in their boss design. I mean, in terms of Elden Ring, I'm like, it has some of FromSoft's best like design in terms of character design and just in terms of fights. It's just I feel like they had this problem where they went from Sekiro brain to Dark Souls 2 brain. And it's like you went from making Sekiro, where it's like bam, 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 perfect parry timings all over you. You know, you're doing fucking sick jumps and dodges, and you're weaving, and you're having this proper fight that feels really fast paced, to going to a game which is really slow again, like Dark Souls. The biggest comparison I have is Dark Souls 2 in terms of the movement in that game. It's really slow, and I feel like Elden Ring is in a similar vein to that. So it's like they still had that really fast, reactionary kind of combat design in their like minds, but it's almost as if going
Your
back to that
your
Souls kind of
toolkit doesn't really allow
toolkit
for
doesn't
the
allow for
reaction.
it that much. And it's like, don't get me wrong, there are still some great stuff. And if you get good at Elden Ring's kind of combat system and just learning it, it does make for some really interesting gameplay and challenge runs if you're into that as a hardcore. But in terms of like a solely one playthrough thing, it can make certain parts of it extremely miserable. And I feel like that's the problem. Is I'm sure if I was a big FromSoft fan, and I like FromSoft games, but I usually am a one and done or a two and done kind of guy. It's like, if you're willing to get into it, you're gonna have a blast. But playing it from a solely kind of one playthrough Andy kind of mentality, there are some points where you're just like, man, this kind of sucks. And I wish that it just was a tiny bit more forgiving. But also, it's a FromSoft game, so that's a middle finger to you right there. And it's like, yeah, try again, summon somebody, and I'm like, I will, thank you.
Yeah, like if we're talking boss design, I think it's time we talk about that end game boss rush.
Oh, it sucks.
Literally, how much of a fucking travesty that is.
The final
Fire
7...
Giant right to the end of the game.
The final 7 bosses.
It's all just a crapshoot, dude.
Like,
it's so fucking miserable.
There are so many great bosses in Elden Ring, and I don't want to like poo poo on FromSoft too much, because it's like when you think of like Godric, and you've got Godric, you've got Margit, you've got like Radahn, dude, the Radahn fight, I love that shit. It's so epic how everyone's charging at him, like, oh, it's so cool.
Oh yeah.
And so you've got most of the main bosses in the actual story to Elden Ring. Up until that point, I really fucking like. I think they're really good. And then you just get to the Fire Giant, and then the game's like, well, we used all our good ideas. It's time for shitty gimmick fights. So big man, fireman, big slam, have fun for 25 years. And it's like, fucking hell, kill me. Bad boss. And then you just get to the dragon area, and you're like, fucking kill. Godskin duo is fucking miserable.
Yeah,
like,
the delinquent duo is shit.
It's not a fun fight at all. It's considered one of the worst fights in FromSoft history, actually. So it's like, fair enough. It sucks. It's not good. I can't remember what the wolf is called. The beast. That you have to fight.
Fuck, what's his name? It was Malekith.
Malekith, that's it. I knew it began with an M.
Malekith. That's his name. That dude fucking sucked. I was on that boss for genuinely 2 hours in a call with Sam, Kane, and Jack. They were just watching me play that fight and losing my fucking mind. And at the end of it, I didn't even feel good. I felt like I just got lucky because I got a favorable pattern for me to win.
Dude, that was me. That was me with Melania.
That was when I fought Logarius in Bloodborne. I duped him.
That was me with Orphan.
I still felt good because it was over, but
yeah.
It's.
I did wear his armor to the final boss though. His armor's fucking
epic.
sick, Hunter. It's like all black with like gold trim around it. It looks really freaking cool.
Oh, that sounds cool.
I was a big fan of that. Boss fight fucking sucked though. He's got 3 moves where he jumps into the air and they all look the goddamn same. Somewhere he'll throw 1 blade beam, somewhere he'll throw 3 blade beams, and one where he just dives right at you. They all look the same, there's no tell, and you just have to roll at him and get lucky. I lost my mind and probably my voice doing that fight.
Yeah. It's just like, it's not fun. And you get up to the top, and you've got the first the Elden Lord fight. Godfrey.
I'll say this. I loved the Godfrey fight.
The Godfrey fight is pretty. The Godfrey fight.
That fight was fucking great, dude.
It is a good fight.
Then he transforms.
No,
or whatever happens.
Well, yeah, he transforms, but that fight, maybe it was just coming off of Malekith and how shitty that fight was. But honestly, Godfrey was such a good fight. It was fun to genuinely just. I was having fun with the game again, dude. It was fun to just sit and learn and see his patterns and be able to follow what the fuck he's doing and not have the camera go ballistic.
I just got lucky. I genuinely on that fight, I just got lucky. He was absolutely dominating my ass, and then for some reason it's just like he got into a place where I was just like, and time to punish, and then for some reason he then just forgot all of his moves, and I was like, fine by me, like just poke. But that fight is Godfrey. The thing about Godfrey is if you have a good Godfrey, you're having a great time. But he is one of those fights where bad roll of the dice, he can be the worst fucking thing in your life, where you're like, I hate my life. It's awful. I've seen people who have done no hit runs of Elden Ring, mad people, but the fact that it's like, imagine getting all the way to Godfrey and then him being the person to take you out literally just before the final boss. You don't even get a crack at it. It's like, nope, and he just roundhouse kicks you into oblivion. And you're like, well, there goes 4 hours of my life, and you're just like, oh, it must suck, man. But yeah, it's like it's a decent fight, but then like I say, final fucking fight.
Final boss is atrocious.
It's not good.
No.
You see, you're unlucky. I didn't use it because I didn't know it was in the game, but back at launch there was a glitch where if you it was really funny. If you skipped the cutscene and stood completely still, like just did not, I can't remember if it was stand completely still or run straight at him and then stop. I think it was if you ran straight at him.
It was run straight at him.
He would just freeze in place and you could just fucking kill him for free. And I was like, I was so mad when I found out that that was a thing, because I was like, you're telling me that I just wasted like 5 hours of my life getting through that first phase, like just to have a go at the worm. And then it's like, oh, I could have just done that. I'm like, God damn it. I hate him. I hate it here.
Radigan's fucking miserable.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan. He will.
Its name is Radigan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the name of the villain in the Great Mouse Detective. That's hilarious.
But no, he'll just like super aggro onto you. He'll read your inputs if you try and heal and charge at you. It's just it wasn't fun. After Godfrey, I just wasn't having fun anymore. And again, it just forced me to have to go and rebuild my character, compromise on the build that I liked in favor of something that would actually just kill Radigan, so I can even get a chance to fight the Elden Beast.
And Big Worm.
It's just frustrating. It was frustrating, dude.
I feel like
it was just frustrating.
The problem that sucks of Elden Ring is, I know you're not into open world games, so for you it was very much a mainline and done thing. And it's one of those things, I would best describe Elden Ring. Elden Ring is like Skyrim. And what I mean by that is, Skyrim is a great video game, but the main quest, and particularly the second half of the main quest, is fucking awful. What makes Skyrim is all of the side quests and all the fun things you can do in Skyrim. And Elden Ring is the exact same way. I think the first half of the Elden Ring main quest is fucking sick. I love most of it, to be honest. But as soon as you get to that second half with Fire Giant and all that, final third, really, is absolute dog shit, and it left a bitter taste in my mouth, which sucks, because all of the surrounding stuff in the second half is fucking fantastic. It's like, all the side stuff in the first half of the game, boring snooze fest if you ask me personally. You can get it in anything else. But all the cool stuff that's in the second half, like the Melania area, like the fucking fire castle where you start doing like you become like part of like a cultish order and you have to go and start doing hits on people. And like there's a whole like side quest in that whole lava area, stuff like that. There's so much cool stuff at the end of the game that I'm like, why isn't this the forced shit? Why am I not being forced to do this good stuff? Because there's so much good stuff in Elden Ring, and it just sucks that it's like, I always feel like I'm like poo-pooing on it. I'm always like, going, bad game, Elden Ring's bad. There's some great stuff. There's just stuff that I also really don't like in it, and it's a shame that it's the end of the game because it leaves a bit of taste in your mouth. It's like there's so much good stuff.
Just being an observer of Elden Ring for the last year, hearing the internet how they talked about Melania, I would have assumed that she was a required boss to beat this video game. But no, I never even found her.
And
I
it's
don't
funny
even
because
know
you
how
can't
to
even.
find her.
It's funny because you have to. It's one of those areas where you have to find a key to get into the area and find a certain way in. So it's not even like you can wander into it. Like you can wander into other places in Elden Ring. You have to very much find some things, kill a couple of enemies. But it's like, it's why I'm always torn about Elden Ring. Is I feel like I really like. I enjoyed playing Bloodborne. I think Bloodborne is great, and I enjoyed playing Elden Ring. But what I've realized is what I love more than playing these video games is watching the internet play and love these video games. I love watching runs. I love watching stupid videos about it. I love watching funny videos where they do stupid builds and they do this stuff. It's really fun to watch people have fun with these games and love them because for the most part I
Yeah.
enjoy them, but I don't love them. So to watch people do extremely stupid things or, have fun and like it's I can understand why people really love them. And I do to a certain extent, but I never got on my way to do something like that. So the fact that people do, I really respect and enjoy it. Like it's in the same
Yeah.
way. I've talked to Hunter about this before. I have no interest in ever playing Dead by Daylight, but sometimes I watch a stupid video on it because there's some really entertaining people. Because to me, there's nothing funnier in my head than people playing a horror game where the people who are the quote unquote survivors are actually just making the killer's life miserable.
Yeah,
There's
we're the
nothing
survivors
funnier.
of the bullies. Yeah.
Where it's like, oh, I'm in a life or death situation with Ghostface. Time to piss off Ghostface and teabag him and be the most toxic person on the planet. And I'm like, I love that. I have no intention of ever playing it myself.
Summarizing it like that sounds like the makings of one of those goofy indie games where you're playing as
Honestly,
like a
that
serial
honestly
killer,
sounds
but
like Scream
they,
9. I feel like they'll get to a point where it's like there's going to be a Scream film where they just start, where they just start taking the piss out of Ghostface. But it's like it's stuff like that.
I think that's what the scary movies
basically,
are.
yeah.
I think so. Yeah.
But it's like watching like someone like Lemmy or someone play that game and just mess about and be the most toxic people. Love that stuff. It's in the same way that I love watching the Dark Souls community play Dark Souls games. They always show up on my recommended, and for the most part I'll watch them. There's a YouTuber called Zero Lenny, which I'll give a shout out to. He just makes a load of comedy videos basically in Dark Souls where he'll do stupid playthroughs. He'll go and find the old IGN guides from like 2011 and do the game exactly as they say, and it'll just they'll make some kind of stupid thing where it's like, oh, the game, like, it's like, because they were playing the PS3 version, so they'll do something like this, like, this game runs great at 10 FPS, so he cries because he has to then go and force his game down to 10 FPS and sit through it, and just seeing people have fun with games like that, I'm just like, I love it. But also, when I play it, it's a miserable experience, and the final fucking third of Elden Ring sucks, and I don't enjoy playing it.
Legit, if the game just went to the final boss after beating Morgott at the top of Atlas Plateau for the first time, that would have been fine. I would have said, great experience. I had my fun. But then it just kept going. And then by the end I was just miserable because that final boss gauntlet just ruined all the fun I was having.
Yeah. And it's like
It got to the point where like Fire Giant walled me so much. My first time fighting him, I got in, he slapped me with his dinner plate, and I died in one hit.
Yeah. He does it under you don't understand. He does have a dinner plate. It's not
Yeah.
not even clickbait. Not clickbait. Literally,
Even still, it's funny.
Literally, imagine this. You're
Oh,
riding
man.
through the snow. You're like, oh god, I hate it here. And then this big fucking giant who's like, damn, I've had enough of life. Look at my dinner plate. And he's like, and you're like, I don't care. You're in my way. I'm gonna kill you. And he's like, no, you're gonna look at my dinner plate. And he smashes the dinner plate in your face. And he's like, look at it. Fine China. That's it. And then you die and cry because you're stuck on it for 2 hours, and there's not even anything you can really do about it. It sucks. Good fight.
So, I had to do the only thing my RPG player brain knows how to do and go find the grind spot. I ended up having to go find the
chicken,
fucking
bro. The
experience chicken.
We love the
go
big
shoot,
chicken.
go pump him full of arrows, level up, give my dude like to a level 130 or whatever. And then I basically almost one-tried the Fire Giant after that.
Dude, you don't understand how much I love the big chicken. When I found the big chicken, I was like,
great.
You're my new best friend. Shoot the big chicken. It was really funny
Yeah.
as well when the late game boss fight was also in that area. Also, sick area. Underground of Elden Ring. Fucking sick. Like, if all the dungeons and stuff like that, the crypts, were like the underground in Elden Ring. That's still one of the coolest, like...
Is that the area where you have to take the big elevator?
Yeah, that's
or whatever
honestly
that goes down?
one of the
I found
coolest
that. That
moments
was
in
cool.
Elden Ring where I was like, you know what? Because like people are like, look how big the map is. I'm like, that doesn't impress me. The fact that I went underground and there was all of a sudden a cave where there were stars in the sky and it was all like this beautiful blue. I'm like, that's the shit that I get. Like, I'm like, that's awesome. I love that. That's good stuff. And it has a big chicken down there. And I'm like, hell yeah, dude, kill the big chicken. There's an endgame boss down there as well. Very hard boss, but I really like that boss fight. It's really good. It's right next to the big chicken, actually. It's not far away.
Oh. I never actually went to where the big chicken was. I just stayed up on that ledge and kept shooting him full of arrows. I don't think I really explored that area.
Dude, like I say, that side stuff, wish it was more, like, I wish that was more of the mandatory stuff, because there's some good shit there. It's just like, again, just say la vie. Sometimes you just can't win.
But yeah. Anyways, yeah, that was my adventures in Elden Ring land.
Well,
Which Stockholm syndromed him enough to get him to try Demon Souls.
And then I put Demon Souls down. Level 2 was miserable.
I also tried playing Demon Souls this week, and I'm just not in the mood for a FromSoft game right now. I'm just not.
Yeah, I think that's most of it.
And I think it's the same way. Like I say, I keep watching like videos on it and stuff like that. I keep watching those Lenny videos, and he's just like, he's always streaming and he's having a load of fun with it. And I'm like, oh, you know what? I can have fun with that. And I'm like, no, you've never played the games before, so you're just gonna have like a trial and error fucking shit fest. And I'm like, you know what? I'm not in the mood for a trial and error shit fest right now. I don't know what I'm in the mood for, so I'm just gonna take a break. But hey, overall,
Anyways,
you glad you played it at least, Kyle?
Yes. Yeah.
Begrudgingly.
I'm just no, because like this is the thing. Like I've been like ever since I finished this game, I've been sitting around thinking, how do I talk about this on the podcast? You know, and honestly, I don't. I think I've done it justice here, because you know my goal is always like play the thing and then just give my honest thoughts on it, because I don't want another Ghost of Tsushima incident on my conscience.
I still live in that one.
Where I came on this show and was like, yeah, Ghost of Tsushima's great. That intro was awesome. The rest of the game was blah, but whatever.
Yeah.
It was really pretty looking blah.
It's okay. Only 17 people watched
blah.
that episode.
Yeah,
it's
that's
true. That was one of the worst episodes in the history of the podcast.
It's true, but
and it was early enough for us to be able to pull something like that.
It's still on my conscience, dude. And I'm thinking, like, even after finishing this, like, I'll probably remember some stuff that I wanted to talk about, but I don't know. Elden Ring, it's a weird game to talk about because, you know, if it hits the wrong group of people are just gonna come at me and be like, skill issue, Keck W, and then they all have a good laugh. But I think my final thoughts on it are, this actually came to me from Jack when he was watching me struggle on Malekith.
And then we know the best reviews of games that people haven't played always come from Jack, as we know from the last episode.
So while I was doing that, he had asked, just kind of thinking out loud, he asked me if I think he would enjoy the game. And I told him, do you have the free time to commit to playing this game? 1. And 2, what is your tolerance for just bullshit? Just unfair, genuine bullshit. If your answers are positive to both of those, then yeah, you can play Elden Ring and have a great time. But if you don't have the time to commit, or you just find the game too frustrating to play, then I can't recommend this game.
No.
And I don't know. It's in a weird kind of place where am unfortunately, like, I kind of am I enjoyed my time playing this game, but I'm also lumping it into that group of games that I wished I was able to enjoy more. Games like Hades and Earthbound, games that I hear people love and talk about how much they love it, and I'm like, damn, I really wished I could love this game like you guys love it, but just something about it, something about the user experience just doesn't click with me.
That's like, we all have those games though. I've 100% been that way.
Yeah.
You know, I've had like 5 of those games this year, dude. Like, literally, the only 2 other games other than Resident Evil that I played was like Fire Emblem Engage. Did not fucking click with me in the slightest. Metroid Prime does not click with me in the slightest. I love that people love them. I just can't get into them, you know? Same with Ghost of Tsushima. We're talking
Yeah.
about that. I love that people love Ghost of Tsushima, and I'm really happy that people really like it. For me, I was so indifferent on it that it's like, I will probably play a sequel because I hope that it'll fix a lot of the problems that I had. But also, I'm not betting on it. It's not like a surefire bet. And, you know, Elden Ring is in
Yeah.
the same league to me as I'm sure Tears of the Kingdom and the future of Zelda is to classic Zelda fans who don't like Breath of the Wild, where they're like, oh, you know, I hope that, yeah, I'm glad that we're getting sequels or whatever, but I hope that one day we're going to get a FromSoft game where they don't make an open world game again and make a more traditional kind of Souls-like, because I think Elden Ring was fun, but I also would not be invested if every single future FromSoft game is
I feel like
open
at
world
most
game.
they're gonna do it again and then switch it up.
True. I feel the same way, but also I know that
That's
some
also
people feel
kinda
the
how I
same way
think
as
that
Zelda. And I'm
that's also
like,
the direction I think Zelda's gonna go. I don't think they're gonna make another massive game like Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom after Tears of the Kingdom.
you see, I think that
they'll switch that up too.
I know today's not the conversation to have with that, but I think that they will. But I think that traditional Zelda is going to become. I think they're going to still make traditional Zeldas. I also think that they aren't going to go back to a Ocarina of Time 3D. I think they will go and do something else. I don't think they're going to do a direct sequel to Breath of the Wild, but I don't think they're going to go back to a traditional Zelda. I think if they do make one, it'll be on a school. You know how they like, you know, we got a Link Between Worlds in a way like that. I think they'll go back and they'll be like, hey, 3D classic Zeldas and now are kind of like a smaller game where we will release one of those and it's still there and it's still good. But I feel like they're not going to make a Tears of the Kingdom 2. But I feel like they're going to go, okay, what next? What can we do with Zelda? Let's keep, you know, experimenting. Let's not go back to a traditional just for the sake of it. They might do it for 1 or 2 games, but...
Well, yeah, but I think I was thinking more so they were going to find something else to do with it rather than revert backwards.
Oh, 100%, but I also feel like Zelda...
Yeah.
I think Zelda fans want them to, after Tears of the Kingdom, to literally go and make the next Twilight Princess or Skyward Sword or Wind Waker, where they literally just go back to that traditional formula and do not take anything that they've learned back. Which I think would be a wasted potential, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like they're out here. I don't think the Zelda series has ever really been guilty of just ignoring the stuff that came before it, even as late in the timeline as Link's Awakening. They made that's still a top-down 2D experience that's relatively new, you know.
Oh, and I feel like in the same way they'll do the same with 3D games, but with the older style Zelda game, 3D Zelda game, should I say? But I just don't think they'll ever go back. I don't think you'll ever get a game that's like Skyward Sword again or Twilight Princess, where it's. I feel like you might get a traditional Zelda game like that, but it's still. They're like, okay, so what can we do with that all being in one world and being like interconnected and stuff like that? That's not by load screens or like. What if we make it so that you've got so many stuff but it's the whole game's open and linear and you can do anything in any order, but we do have that more traditional design in there. You know, I feel like there's middle points and different experimentations you can do. But anyway, we're not here to talk about Zelda because Zelda's fucking shit. Anyway, remember guys, there's only one good Zelda game that they've ever made, and it's called Breath of the Wild, and don't you forget it.
I was gonna say, and that's whatever one you grew up playing.
That is also true. It's whichever one you like, to be honest. And remember, the rest of them are garbage.
I like all of them.
Well, you're a fucking freak.
Fix your opinion, Hunter.
Never. You can't make me. I will be a Skyward Sword apologist until I die.
Here's my thing, Hunter.
Good for you, man.
Here's the thing, Hunter, is I can't hate on you for liking Skyward Sword, because I liked Skyward Sword as much as I liked the other 3D Zeldas that I played before Breath of the Wild, which is not much, but I don't hate it any more than I hated the others. I just felt indifferent towards all of them. If anything, I was like, hey, these characters are cool. I like these characters in this version. It's just a shame that the motion controls and the controls in general do absolutely nothing for me. But hey-ho, say la vie.
Skyward Sword is also in that category of games I wished I liked more,
Yes, but you can't.
but I've also only played it once.
But you can't. You can't love it. Anyway, quickly,
I can't. I don't have the patience to play it again.
quickly, Hunter, have a nice death. TLDR, how do you feel? Yeah, quickly, Hunter, have a nice death. Zelda sucks. Get in
there. Have a Nice Death is really cool so far. This was, what was it? When was it shown? It was in the pre-show of the 20. It was not the last Game Awards, but the one before that. It was literally the only good thing at the show.
How dare you?
And
no, I think he's right.
I don't remember that one.
And it looked.
He's right.
Yeah, it looked really cool. As far as that goes, it's a 2D roguelike where the premise is Death. His subordinates got out of control and have ferried too many souls to the afterlife, and now his company, Death Inc., is experiencing a massive amount of burnout because the people directly underneath of him don't know when to stop, so he has to go and correct it himself. It's really funny. As far the introductory cutscene was really funny because it started showing him as far as like he was actually like tall, like traditional Grim Reaper looking, and it, killing people, and it just progressed to be like, and he got smaller and shrunk, and suddenly, it was really funny. As far as the game's got a really amusing sense of humor. As far as the gameplay goes, roguelikes and all of that, its structure, it does a good job at. It's not like it doesn't have the hub world kind of thing that Hades does, where every time I die, I'm super excited to go and just talk to everyone before I go and make another run or anything. It's got a couple of screens before you start again that you can chat with people, but it's not like the same kind of thing. It's just kind of like, oh, talk to you, get some dialogue here. They've already started repeating to me, chat with the guy to buy some more weapons and all of that. And I guess as far as the actual structure of the gameplay goes, the way it is separated is you got your scythe, which has a couple of variants that you can pick from at the beginning. You have the traditional one, you got these ones that are like a double. You're wielding like two sickles that are on like a string, better range, and they can pull things towards you at the end of the combo. That's a pretty cool variant. It's got one that's double-sided. That's like you go slower, but you hit harder, etc. So they got cool variations for just your standard scythe there, and then when you're actually in the dungeon, you'll pick up things that are like enchantments for your cloak, which essentially become extra weapons where, hit the triangle button and it will be, the Nintendo equivalent of the triangle button, and he'll pull out a big sword and cut people down, or some knives that have like poison effects. Or my favorite one was that he just I got a rocket launcher at one point, and it like floored me. I wasn't expecting that. I stopped for like 2 minutes just to have a good laugh at that one, because it was, it was pretty solid. As far as a straight line really hurts if you make contact with it, as far as that goes. And it's not super hard. It's more of like every time I die, it's more of like a death of 1,000 cuts thing, where I just haven't found healing items in a while, or like the bosses will get me real good as far as that goes. They've got some kind of level up system. You get experience as you go. It's got the typical currency thing where it's like, oh, this currency helps you get stuff for the run that you're doing, and then you've got like gold ingots that you can take back with you to buy more weapons or other decoration stuff. Those are the two utilities I've managed to find for it so far. One of the bonuses seems to be, after you level up so far, you get I got an elevator that takes me just straight to the boss, or the first boss anyway, so that's nice. I hope there are more of those as I continue, because the length of the runs has been pretty painless so far. Like, it took like 5 minutes of actual focus to go and do the first area and then fight the boss, and lose to him a couple of times and move on after I get him down. It was nice because this is very much one of those games where once you kill the boss once, you've pretty much never have to worry about killing him again. And then because you'll just be able to do it, and then from there it gives you a choice of where the second area can go, and you get to choose between two of them. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I haven't actually defeated either of those areas yet because I've just been bouncing. I should probably just focus on beating one area and then try and move on to the other one, but I keep being like, oh, it didn't work out the last time. I'll try you this time. Kind of thing. Yeah. So it's cool. I'm interested in playing more of it. It's got a really funny sense of humor as far as that goes. The rocket launcher thing cracked me up. The names of some of the enemies are great. Like there was this one like zombie thing with some like pruning shears stuck in its head, and it was called a morticulturist. That got me good. And there are other examples of that I've been coming across that are escaping me at the moment. But yeah, Have a Nice Death is real neat. Probably, real solid as far as roguelikes are concerned. I don't really have too much. My two other shining examples are Hades and Returnal, so it's not like I have a whole wide spectrum to compare them to here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I'm still really liking this for all the more I've done.
No. Fair enough. And then I guess finally, as we wrap up, does anyone have any final words for E3? Any eulogies?
Long live Geoff Keighley.
Yeah, I would have liked to go to one someday, but
yeah,
I guess not.
Oh well.
I don't know, man. Like
Sag.
I think my favorite tweet that I saw, I don't remember who tweeted it, so I'm sorry. I'm just gonna take the credit. It's fine. I tweeted it. Was someone retweeted E3's 2022 tweet where they're like, "We'll see you in person in 2023," and someone retweeted it on the same day that they tweeted that, saying, "No, we won't." And it was like, "Yeah, you're true." It's like I feel like everyone's seen this coming, where everyone was assuming that E3 was dead. I assumed it was dead last year, to be honest. I was like, so then when they said they were going to try again, I was like, okay, you can try. And I'm just like, it's weird, right? Because it's like, it sucks in a way because I miss all the big conferences. I feel like all these digital showcases don't do the same thing as a conference.
Yeah, it was all better when that, as far as like, I guess selfishly from the observer experience, it was a better thing to like witness. As far as that's concerned, I feel like Keighley's show is yet to be as good as even the 2019 iteration of E3 was.
Yeah.
It's like...
But, like, I understand business-wise why all of this is being, why things are moving the way it is.
I think the problem is it's like, here's the thing, right? I don't give a shit about Geoff Keighley's show, because here's the thing is, there never really was an E3 show. Like, the E3 shows that they did were garbage. They were always shit. But, it's like, here's the thing. Sony State of Players have never really fucking hit well, ever. They never do a good job. They're always disappointing. The only ones that weren't were the ones leading up to the PlayStation 5 and the one showcase they did afterwards that was called a showcase. Every time it's a State of Play, that just basically means it's going to be shit. So you just kind of
the State of Play last year was, in the summertime, was nice with the Resident Evil 4 and...
Yeah, it was okay, but also it didn't feel big to me because Resident Evil 4 has been known, like, even though it was only announced last year, we've known about the remake for fucking 4 years, and it was like, everything about it is like, it wasn't like an actual thing. Like, I feel like we haven't had an actual E3 like kind of level conference from anybody, even Nintendo. Nintendo has not done a good job at directs recently. They've been fine. There's been one or two things where you're like, hey, that was pretty cool, and that's about it. You've not had like a E3 like 2017 or anything like that where it's like Metroid Prime 4. You thought it would come out at some point. It's never going to, but it's like, hey, you got that. You got Mario Odyssey. Bang, bang, bang. It's like you don't have that kind of level of 2018, 2019 digital events. I feel like digital events have just gone to shit recently, where none of them are interesting. Nintendo suck. PlayStations definitely suck. Xboxes was only cool because they had Hi-Fi Rush, which I admit was very cool. Genuinely,
yeah, but that was also just as cool watching the 2-minute Hi-Fi Rush trailer because that's 100%. All I did. I didn't look at the rest of that show.
And I'm not gonna lie to you. Like, if you're asking me, Ethan, you've got 3 digital events coming up. Well, apparently Nintendo's not even gonna have a fucking showcase because they've got nothing to show. But it's like, hey, Ethan, you've got PlayStation, you've got Xbox, you've probably got a shitty Ubisoft conference, and you've got Geoff Keighley's Boring Fest, and it's like, which one are you most excited for? Honestly, at this point, I don't trust Sony because it'll probably be shit. So I'm actually most excited for Xbox. Like, I know they have games coming up, so at least I'll be like, hey, that game looks shit, but it's a game. Whereas like Sony could very much tell you the next 3 years of exclusives that are coming out, and they could also exclusively show you 15 minutes of Crash Team Rumble that you don't want to see because it already came out by the time the showcase is there, and another Capcom game, which is great, but Capcom, why are you the people that announce stuff at Sony shows and no one else? Like, that's literally all you do.
Their existence is their sole existence now is to carry those conferences.
Yeah,
the one time they didn't was when they showed Exo Primal.
Nah, and that game is coming out this
Marvel
year.
vs. Capcom 4, baby. I still believe.
But hey, you know, rest well, E3. You'll probably try again next year, and you probably won't happen again. So I'm sure we'll be giving it one final hurrah next year when that doesn't happen. And still, my favourite part of the entire time of this thing was literally, we all joke about how every time that E3 fails, Geoff Keighley's the first one to take a selfie at the grave. But this time, fucking hell, he was speedrunning that shit. He was like, E3 dead, literally within 30 seconds. He was taking a selfie. He had the Summer Games Twitter go, we're still going, baby. And then when fucking E3 tweeted out,
one
yeah,
of his accounts
he just,
there,
like,
Summer Games Fest,
07?
or yeah, either him or the Games Fest account just saluted, and I'm like,
let's be real.
Oh,
here.
come on now.
Everybody knows that Summer Games Fest account is Geoff Keighley's alt. It is him that's tweeting that.
Yeah,
you know it's him because he's not paying a social media guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's 100% him.
Yeah.
He literally just pressed the other accounts on the Twitter app and was like, right, change, like 07, there you go, sorted. It's just very funny.
It's hilarious though. Like, did E3 poison his mother?
Something happened, and it wasn't pretty. That's all I'm going to say. But anyway, that's it. That's been our show, everybody. Thank you so much for hanging out with us this week. It's been fun. Next week, who knows? I don't. We've still got a little ways to go before more games. Like I say, at the end of this month, we've got quite a lot of stuff coming out. You know, we've got a whole week of releases, and then Star Wars Jedi's the week after that. So we've got plenty of stuff near the end of April. There's Coffee Talk 2, there's the Crash Team Rumble beta, there is Horizon DLC, like I say, Star Wars Jedi, and then we're into Tears of the Kingdom territory, which is really fun. I'm really excited. You don't understand how excited I am for the Horizon DLC, and what I mean by that is I'm not excited in the slightest, but you know, Horizon DLC, you know, Horizon and Coffee Talk, they last me around a week, then bingo, you know, you've got Star Wars Jedi is going to last me until at least like 5 days before Zelda comes out, and then it's Zelda time, baby, and it's like, you know, my mind's distracted. As soon as those games are out in mid-April, my mind's distracted until Zelda, and that's what matters, dude. I'm really excited. It's going to be fun. So yeah, I guess that's all we've got time for this week. Be sure to tune in next week for some more procrastination. Who knows what we'll talk about? Maybe we'll do a topic. Who knows?
Maybe
E3 will resurrect, and then we have to talk about that. Who knows?
My God.
The second coming of E3.
That would be funny. Imagine like the day, like Easter, E3 post an account, be like, "We're back on, baby."
Just the Terminator, but yeah, thumbs up, dude. There you go. But no, yeah, be sure to check out the review for Resident Evil 4 should be going up this week at some point, so make sure you go to youtube.com/hotgamersonly or follow us on Twitter at hotgamersonly if you want to keep up to date with that, or go and check the website. It will be on the website, hotgamersonly.com. That'll be going up, and then we'll be back same time, same place next week on Monday. So yeah, thank you ever so much for listening this week, guys. It's been fun. And yeah, we'll see you next week. But until then, have an awesome rest of your week, and yeah, we'll see you next time. Bye.
See ya.
Toodaloo.